Hello, my loves. Happy New Year. Maria West here. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty. This is episode 368, and this is my 8th installment of my video series, Conversations with Women on Love, Truth, and Beauty. And I have with me one of my UK goddesses, Jools Williams of Jewelled Chalice. Jules, welcome.
Thank you
Welcome,
so much.
welcome. You're
Good
welcome.
day.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you. Really
Awesome.
good. Quiet holidays, plenty of rest and relaxation. Um, Feeling good. Thank you.
Yeah, those are the best because we don't get caught up in the, I call it the yaya gaga zaza of the insanity. And especially when, we've got winter solstice where everything should be winding down and aligned with nature. So, anyways, I'm so happy to have you here. And I know the viewers want to know about you, want to know about, your life, your upbringing, all the topics of what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a girl and grow up through our households, our childhoods, and all that. So I'm just gonna let you go at it.
Thank you so much. I was thinking earlier about um you and we've had a conversation and your experience was very different from mine. My awakening happened when I was about 44, 45. And prior to that, there was nothing that I would have hated more than come on something like this and talk about this subject.
Oh, wow.
Not that I didn't like the subject of what I feel to be metaphysical and the physical conjoining and coming down into earth to help raise the vibration and heal. That would have been scary as uh, for me. That
Yeah.
would have been really scary. However, I did have a secret cupboard in my head where I used to keep thoughts about witches and fairies and magic and dragons. And one story I tell people a lot is when I was 2, I had an imaginary dog. It was an English Cocker Spaniel. It was black and white, or they call it a roan, with the one with the very, very long ears, and the very droopy eyes and that kind
Oh,
of face.
they're very sweet.
And it's about the size of what we call a cockapoo. Um, anyway, it was a spaniel, and I called it Tui. And I looked back to find out why I called it Tui, because I remember my mother speaking to a neighbour. They were making an arrangement to do something, and she said to Mum, "What time would you like?" And Mum said, Tui, i.e., around about 2 p.m. And I heard this word, Tui, and I thought it was a juicy, delicious word. So when I got my imaginary dog, I called it Tui. And I can remember what the dog looked like. And one day we were in the kitchen and I'd been outside in the backyard. And as I'm coming in, my mum went to close the back door and she trapped the dog's tail in the door. And I screamed and said, and I had a little bit of a meltdown. So mum, obviously, when dad come home, mum was a bit scared. They decided they were going to take me to the doctors because I think they thought there was something wrong with me. Um, so the doctor told them, buy her a puppy. Buy her a puppy. And they did. And it happened to be a border collie. The black and white collie, the sheepdog. It was one of those. And my imaginary dog went back to heaven.
Oh.
So I tell that story. And I just always told it people as a comedy skit almost. Oh, that was one of my quirks. What I didn't realise was people who've not come across anything like this, because it was my lived experience, it was the norm. Other people, when receiving that story, would have a concerned look on their face, like, oh, are you still a bit crazy? Yeah. So obviously and then the dog disappeared, and I got the dog, and I fell in love with the dog, and I became best friends with the dog, the
Yeah.
actual dog.
Yeah.
So I became more a dog person than a knowing child. So when people say that they came here as a knowing child, and then they lost it when they were about 9 or 10, that they used to see spirits or talk to people. I didn't have mine developed to get there. Mine was cut off by the arrival of the actual dog. So what that means, I have no clue what that's all about, to be fair.
Wow, that's a very interesting, because my take on it is that you actually, in your imagination, and for myself, whatever is in our imagination is just as real as what is materialized. In fact, everything that's materialized was an imagination first. And
Absolutely.
so this imaginary dog was actual. It was an actual dog in that actual reality that was in your imagination. And that's magical to me. And of course, with this incident and the imaginary dog going off into real non-physical, and you materializing this border collie. And I love border collies as well. I mean, they are a lot of energy. They're a lot of fun. You know, they need jobs. So I think that's a wonderful story of how magic can morph reality into something else, and just something just as wonderful.
Yeah. Cindy, the dog, the actual dog, did have a job. I became her speech. And in those days, because I'm now 66 and I'll own that, but it's just a number.
Yeah.
It is just a number. And I'll tell you this just as an aside. The other day, I was just writing something and I wrote 666 instead of 66. And it made me laugh like a brain. It was so funny. I am now 666.
Lord Cappy approves. Lord Cappy approves. That is wonderful.
So it's just a number. The reason I mention my age is to indicate to people that I actually was a child in the 60s, in the late, I was born in 1957. So, all the way through the 60s, I was a little girl.
Yeah.
So
Me as well.
Different world. And where we lived in a small suburb that was very old Victorian, what we call terrace houses. 2 rooms down, 2 rooms up, and a tin bath, actually. We didn't even have a bathroom. And it was my grandfather's house, and they rented it until they got a bigger house with an actual bathroom. But I remember my dad coming home from work and having a bath in a tin bath in that kitchen. It was real poverty. But we had enough. My dad grew, he had an allotment, so we grew a lot of food, and we had really fresh food. So we were well cared for, but we were, poverty stricken in a way. Why am I saying this? Oh yeah, because where we live, the children were just let out to play. As young as 3 and 4 years old.
Yeah.
And the dog became my guardian. And my mother, one day I had disappeared and the dog wasn't with me. She said to the dog, go and get, my real name is Julie. I call myself Jules. And my mum said to the dog, go and find Julie. And I remember being sat around the corner from the end of our street, and the dog came for me and literally got hold of my little sleeve and took me home.
Wow.
So that's how natural my life was at the very beginning. There was very naturalness about it. There was no fear of children being taken away or injured or hurt.
Right.
And especially because I had a guardian dog with me. So I had a very free childhood in that respect. And when a lot of people my age look back, they say, yeah, but it was neglect because, we might be out all day and we didn't even have like food. And I'm like, yeah, but all we needed to do was go home and get food and something to drink. And it was available.
Exactly.
For me, I loved my life as a child in that area. And then when things went wrong, so I'll describe this event just to give people an idea of the kind of person. I don't think this came from nurture. I think this came from nature. An example of that was when we were out, a friend of mine with a boy. If he was, in this day and age, I think people would label him as neurodiverse in some way. He didn't give good eye contact, and he didn't have real social skills, and he was very particular about the people that he would socialize with. But
Mhm.
because our mums were friends, he was comfortable with me. So when we were out in the group, I was his little older sister, and I might only have been 4, but
Aw.
I was his little protector, plus the dog. And this big boy came and stole his little tricycle. And I was on my tricycle, and the big boys came and took his tricycle, and he was crying. And I got off my tricycle, and I remember marching up to this big boy and pummeling him on his tum and saying, "You give my friend his bike back." And he pushed me, and I fell over. So I don't know what happened then after that. I don't really remember, but I remember going into my house then and thinking, oh, that was not that clever. But that was the kind of person I was.
Yeah.
I was able to spot cruelty and things that are not okay very, very quickly. That, I think, was
Yeah.
something that became, for me, a very innate
Yeah.
part
Your
of my
moral
authentic
compass was
being.
spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. So when mum and dad got divorced, and they were very young when I was born. My mum was 19 when she had me, and she was only just 19
Hmm.
when she had me. My dad was, I love my dad, but he was not what you would call a sacred masculine. He had a lot of trauma
Hmm.
being young, being
Yeah.
in the war,
Yeah.
and his father not being around, and his mother having to work 3 jobs, and he was 10 with 4 younger siblings, so he became the man of the house.
Hmm.
So he suffered real trauma from that,
Wow.
being parentified too young.
Hmm.
So he grew up with this reliance on the woman, on the
Hmm.
feminine, because his father wasn't there. So when his father then came back, he had a really troubled relationship with his father because he had to try and, anyway, that's.
Wow.
But it translated into their relationship, and my dad became a sycophant for my mother. So if my mother said jump, my dad said how high.
Okay. Yeah.
He didn't argue back. He didn't ever really take responsibility. So
Yeah.
he was that almost non-person, that
Right. And so
shadow of a
your
person.
mom she had to take over essentially.
Absolutely. And take over she did. But because they were both very young, when they broke up, my mum went wild. She had had no life as a teenager. She'd not had any kind of experience of
Hmm.
life out there.
Oh,
And as soon
wow.
as they broke up, my mum suddenly forgot she was a mum, and she became wanting to experience life. And we ended up being fairly severely neglected because of it. So we ended up having to go and live with my father's parents.
Oh,
We
wow.
lived in the countryside in Wales, near the sea, and it was the old-fashioned where I lived was south of Manchester in England.
Hmm.
Even though I was born in Wales, we'd moved over to England, and my mum was English. I was taken back to Wales. So because I was born in Wales, I absolutely loved it, and I wanted to stay. I didn't want to go back. I just wanted to stay. My sister wanted to go back, so I was dragged back, kicking and screaming when they got it all sorted out. So because I'd really resisted coming home, I think my mother didn't know what to do, didn't understand what was going on. So she, all through my teenage, dealt with me as if she thought I hated her
Yeah.
and treated me accordingly. Very
Uh,
defensive, absolutely everything.
hmm.
Um, so I want to do something. Yeah, okay, you can do it. And then the day before, an hour before, you can't go. You've got to mind your baby sister. There was an awful lot of that.
Wow.
Um, the people say that a lot of women envy their daughters. It never struck me that there could have been some envy that I had the freedom that she really didn't have as a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yeah, exactly.
Her father was the Victorian type, and he wouldn't let her out the door. But I had the freedom. We'd had the 60s, younger girls, 13, 14, they were allowed out. there's a lot more freedom. We can
Right. We're discovering all kinds of cool things.
Absolutely. And she was never allowed to do that. Her father just wouldn't let her do it. So there could have been an element of envy as well. But I wouldn't like to say what someone else was feeling because we've not been able to have that conversation.
Right, right.
Wow. And we've never really healed that relationship.
Yeah.
When I come to do the transformation, the mother wound, as Bethany Webster coined it, the mother wound.
It's an important wound. It is the wound of all wounds. It
became so important. So when I look back on my parenting, I did copy and paste to a certain extent around my son. And when I looked back and I was learning to do the transformation, the shadow work, it was that, whoa, did I do that? Whoa, that was not okay. But at the time, I didn't understand. And probably didn't parent as well as I could have done. So I've had to have
How old were you when you had your son? I'm sorry.
21.
How old were you?
21.
Okay. Yeah. And that is so young. It's so young.
Yeah. He'll be 45 next week or in a couple of weeks. He'll be 45, you know. And when I think he's nearly 50, you know, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah. 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 My stepsons are 46.
Yeah.
They'll be 47 this year. It's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They're actually adults. It's like, whoa. And this was my son's bone of contention, that I struggled to let him adult and let him go.
Interesting.
And he had to have that conversation with me when, not so much when he moved in with his partner and they bought a house. It was when they had the first child. He had to have a very severe conversation with me. It will not be okay for you to just turn up when you want. It will not be okay for you to just pick the baby up when it's sleeping. You have to step back now, Mum. You really do have to.
How did that land for you? How did that land for you?
I ran fast into the arms of a therapist.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't understand what I was feeling. And that's at first for me. Yeah. I literally couldn't understand what was going on. And I literally couldn't understand how I was feeling.
My legs are tingling right now. My legs, when you started talking about it, it was just like.
But you know what, Maya? I am so very proud of him for verbalizing and keeping his boundaries. And he was only 24.
He sounds amazing. You done good, Jules.
Yeah. And I ran into the arms of a therapist. I only had 2 sessions. And the thing that shifted my awareness was, I was like, you know, the 24, they just bought this house and they're working so hard. And like my daughter-in-law, you know, she's like on her own and she's going to need help and do that. And, you know, then he's going to have to come home from work and start helping and da-da-da. And I'm reproducing my own marriage. And the therapist turned to me and said, do you not trust your son to do the right thing? And I just went, yeah.
Ouch.
And she said, so what's the problem? And I said, there isn't one. And it just, boom. It literally turned my head around 180 degrees.
Wow.
And it was part of my wanting to control. It was part of my mothering him.
Yes.
Carry on mothering him. You need me.
Yes.
You need me.
Yes. Well, yeah, I hear you. That is an incredible, poignant moment. When he approached you about this, did you have an inkling? Like, do you remember what you were feeling internally when he confronted you?
There were 2 things going on. There was the initial surprise. And then as he verbalized more around his reasons for doing this, then it turned into almost shock.
Yeah.
And it was you are speaking to me as a person that you see me as. I don't see. But I love you. I trust you. And the deeper awareness said, Jules, you've got to go with this. You've got to go with this, Jules, because this is their home, their relationship,
Yeah.
their baby.
Yeah.
And you almost have to ask permission
Yeah.
to the grandparents, because you are no longer number one.
Yeah.
For either of those people, you have to now sit on the back burner. You are not on the front.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously mum, even though he's met his partner, I still believe it takes a man quite a while to release the traces. But when they had the child, it's my daughter-in-law to thank for this, because she had a challenging relationship with her own mum. So there was some awareness in my daughter-in-law that it had to happen. So initially it was that, she's taking my baby away from me. And it wasn't that at all. It was standing their ground, planting their flag in the ground, putting up their tent and saying, this is our sovereign land.
Wow. I mean, they just set a boundary. They set a boundary, and they set a boundary. It sounds like they're a great match, where they actually conversed, had those tricky conversations as a very young couple to set up their lives. And it sounds like they had a vision about how it was going to happen and what the rules were, the rules of engagement, and as painful as that is, I understand that. And it can feel, I've received some tricky conversations with my stepkids and stepkids, and I know that shock, because it's like hell is freezing over to come get you. And it's a very humbling experience to not override, because, I know for myself, I'm still seeing them as these little kids, which is not accurate. It's a projection from the mom, and also, as you were mentioning, your endeavors perhaps to rectify your experience by sometimes I think we double down on things and we think we're doing them the opposite way, but the effect or the results are the same. The feelings of control are very similar.
I think I use control as a compensation for the pain I know my son went through when I got divorced.
Okay.
There was a hell of a lot of guilt in me for escaping an abusive marriage.
How old were you? How old was he?
He was 8.
Okay. All right.
Which is very similar age I was when my parents got divorced. And I was adamant I was not going to repeat my family pattern.
Good for you. Good for you.
I hung around in that family, that marriage, for way longer than I should have done, because I didn't want to go down the road my parents went down. I was too naive to think, well, you'll do it different. You won't do it like they did. Because they did it. They were just like 2 kids. One would be there and the other one would leave. And then 3 weeks later, the other one would come back and the other one would go.
Yeah.
And it's like we had a revolving door at the front of the house.
Wow.
And I was adamant that I was, if I'd have just thought to myself, well, yeah, you do need to escape this marriage, I would have done it 2 years prior. But I hung on and hung on and hung on, because I thought, no, I can't let my kid grow up a child of a divorced parent. But what I realised was I did do it differently.
Yeah, good for you.
But I made my mistake. I didn't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
But I was adamant I wasn't going to do it that way. So he didn't know, where he was.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that constancy.
Yes.
Because I thought that's what I missed, was that constancy.
Well, and that's what mothering is. I mean, when you think about it, the action of mothering is doing. It actually is masculine. It's not feminine. And so as a mother, that is our job. It is our purpose to protect and to guide and to be all that. Did your son have a good relationship with his father?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, very good.
All right.
For me, it could have been better. But the gap my ex didn't cover, I covered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like going to football with him, I took him to football. I took him swimming. So my son didn't really lose out. I mean, I never remember him saying anything about, oh, I wish Dad had taken me to football. And the odd times that my partner wasn't actually working on the day football was on, he did
Mm-hmm.
actually take him to football, but it was so few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I covered that. And I didn't really mind, given that he was at work,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I kind of felt a bit sad for my son that a lot of the other kids had their dads there. My son didn't. He had his mum and his grandmother, my mother, who my mother was, I was talking about I was 3 or 4 and I went and attacked that kid. Well, my mother was still doing that in her 50s, So when they were playing football, if my son got tackled and kicked, my mother's running onto the pitch with a handbag, kind of whack the kid for hitting my son. You know what I mean? But it became too much,
That's funny. With a handbag. I love it.
My son would come to me and he'd say, "Don't bring her again. She's embarrassing me."
Oh, Granny. Oh, Mummy. Oh, my. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, so he had a great relationship with my ex because when my ex was with him, he was great with him.
Mm-hmm.
The things that went on between me and my ex, my son had no clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because
And
my
you
ex
want,
was
and
great with him.
it sounds like you wanted to protect him and also mentor him that you don't want to see your dad be like this, because then he's seeing this and getting infused with this information that, oh, this is what men do with women. And obviously he doesn't do that with his partner, with his wife. So, I think you've done good, Jules. Yeah.
Sadly, when we broke up, because my ex had issues, he was, toxic, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Then that toxicity became evident after we broke up. So my son did then start to witness that
Okay. Yeah.
aggression.
Wow.
But he still loved his father, and I still let him go see him.
Yeah.
I
Of
didn't stop him
course.
from seeing his father, but his father managed to find a new source of energy, shall we say,
Yeah.
and just stopped wanting to come and see
Mm-hmm.
my son. So I ended up literally being mother and father, even though I'd done it to a certain extent in the marriage. I ended
Mm-hmm.
up having to do it
Yeah.
full time,
Yeah.
So I made mistakes because I had to go out and earn a living. There were things that my son has mentioned when older that he would have wished I would have done differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that whole uh, responsibility thing that we do as women, especially when we're raising children and we're doing it alone, wearing the many different hats and playing all the different roles, going in and out of the matrix, so to speak, at these various jobs. What was that like to maintain balance? Like, how did you do it? Did you think about because I know when I was doing it, I was like thinking like way ahead of time. Like I would literally have a calendar or a page for a calendar and schedule when I was going to do stuff so that I could handle the daily punch list of everything that needed to happen in order to feed, in order to pick everybody up, in order to do what I needed to do.
yeah, yeah. I was very lucky in that I had my sister and my mother living quite close to me, so they did help out a lot. I did have a fractious relationship with my mom, but when she knew I needed support and help when I got divorced, it was there. It wasn't there all the time. It did end because she was a very touchy person. So when I put a boundary in, it didn't land very well with her, but my then sister would cover.
Okay.
And as it happened, one of the mums in school was like a childminder kind of person, and she used to collect my son from school. There was one time I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford a car on the wage I had, so I didn't have a car. And the school wrote to me and said that my son had started to do gymnastics in the high school. He was about 12, and they said he's really, really good. We recommend that you take him to the private gymnastics club.
Wow.
So it was about how long? How many miles away? 6, 7 miles away, and it was in the evening. Well, I got the letter in the pardon me, in the winter time. So it's dark night, 7 p.m. till like 9 p.m. in a really, really rough part of the city.
Yeah.
And I just said no. No way. I would have had to have taken 2 different buses. And then I would have had to hang around in this place for a couple of hours.
Oh my
and then get
gosh.
back with him. So it would have been 10 o'clock at night when we got home. He was only 12. I mean, he was in bed asleep for 8 every night.
Yeah.
And I just said, in life, sometimes we have to try and find different ways of doing things.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but that's a no.
Yeah.
Because, whatever. But what happened was they started to do trampolining as well. And he ended up being very good at that. So because it was a different skill, he actually got put onto the trampoline team at school. And then at weekends, they were going around doing little competitions. And my son, being my son, decided at one point that instead of doing a 1 somersault thing in training, he was going to show off and do double. And as he's into the second one, someone shouted his name. And he came out of it, turned to look at this boy, missed his second somersault. And when he landed, he hit his Achilles on the metal bar of the trampoline. So they had to phone me, try phoning me at home. I was out shopping. It was landline then. We didn't have mobile. So I came home from shopping. There was a message on my phone. Oh, your son's in hospital. It's in a different city from where I live because they travelled to this competition. The teacher's with him. He's looking after him. And that was it. That ended his trampolining career.
Wow.
Not because of the actual injury, but because of the fear.
Yeah.
Now, I think had he had a male role model in our family that was obviously sacred master in time, I think they would have been able to get him out of it.
Yeah.
But me and his mum was kind of glad that he couldn't do it. And that sounds awful.
Yeah.
But I didn't want my baby being falling and breaking all his bones. And,
of course. Of course. Yeah.
So I did that. I did a misstep there. I didn't try and figure out a way to try and help him get over his fear. But I didn't know where to go to do that anyway.
Yeah.
There was none of the internet. There was who to speak to when you haven't got any male role models in your family.
Exactly.
I wasn't in touch with my dad. He wasn't in touch with his dad. I only had my mother, my sister, mostly women around me.
Yeah. 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 We didn't have the Google, as it were,
No.
to type in the question and get an answer or get a series of answers and videos on how to. I mean, it's just amazing. So in many ways, you were like really kind of on the front lines as I was, trying to figure out how do we do this? How does this go exactly?
Yeah. And, I'm still so blessed that I can speak in this way to my son and take the brickbats that he wants to throw at me and say, this held me back, that held me back, doing all the, when you look at the lines and you think,
yeah.
So this is where my limiting beliefs developed. This is how my limiting beliefs developed. Because I've done the work now myself, I had a fine job of doing myself. But then I thought, well, I need to work on me as the perpetrator because my son has been held back in a way through his childhood experiences of which
Yeah.
I have to take this huge amount of responsibility for that.
Yeah.
But all I can do is apologize and say, I wish I'd have done better.
Yeah.
Now you're an adult. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Exactly. You can't keep blaming me.
He doesn't. And that's the thing. And I remember
That
having that conversation, and he said, Mum, you know, I've done a lot of work. I've gotten over it. But part of my doing the work is being able to have that conversation with you.
yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for
So
you.
I'm incredibly blessed in,
That,
you know,
that is like, yeah, that's part of what it is to be conscious and a woman, conscious and a mother, conscious and a grandmother, conscious and, a human being that has navigated the ups and downs of the totality of human experience. I mean, nobody told me how to do stuff. And if we imitated our mothers, if I imitated my mother, I mean, it could have landed me in jail or, with a slit throat for that matter. So, I want to ask, when did the whole topic of self-care occur to you?
the self-healing, the self-love
Okay.
was when, so had I had, no, for some reason, so I worked in corporate. So I was in the city a lot. So I'd be walking down a city street and there were a lot of buses, there were trains. And on the trains, there were, advertisements. And I kept seeing this word Reiki. And it was on the side of a bus, Psychology Today has this article on Reiki. And I'd be in a newsagent and there'd be this Reiki magazines, and Psychology Today would have one, or Complementary Therapies magazine, Reiki. And Reiki was just popping up. And although I didn't know about synchronicity at that point, I kind of quite clever, I'm intelligent enough to think, this word keeps popping up and I keep being magnetized by it.
Yeah.
What do I do now? What do I do? So again, before the internet, so I got the local newspaper, the trade pages, complementary therapies, and I found 3 different Reiki practitioners in my locality. And I literally remember thinking, and where this came from, I have no clue. It's just natural to me. I must go for the one that calls me. And I tuned in to all of them, made an appointment, went and had a Reiki treatment. During the Reiki treatment, she asked me, do you know what Reiki is? And I thought it was a massage. And I said, no. I said, I'm assuming it's a kind of massage, a foreign one. Because I know it's not, it's a foreign word. I have no clue.
Yeah.
She said, so you think that's what it is? I said, yeah. Are you interested in learning a lot about Reiki before I do the treatment? Or are you willing for me to just go ahead? I said, no, go ahead. I want to experience it from fresh. I don't want to know anything about it, really. Yeah. So, of course, they do, she started at the Crown. And I'm laid there on this table, fully clothed, waiting for her to start massaging me. And it seemed to take forever for her to begin. But then she did begin, and I felt her going down this side, down my right side.
Wow.
And then down my feet, and then she's coming back up the other side. And I'm thinking, oh, it's really nice. So and I had a dodgy left hip at the time. It's a bit creaky. It was about 43. It was a bit creaky, my left hip. So when I used to stand up, I used to stand up quite delicately so as not to upset my left hip.
Of course, yeah.
And she said, how was it for you? I said, I felt you, doing all the massage. I said, but I felt as if you were working really, really hard on my left hip. I said, as if you discovered there was something going on there and you were kneading it like a loaf of bread. And I really felt that you worked hard on that. So thank you very much. I had visions of the poor woman's muscles really aching, And then she said, what else? And I said, I've got these visions of all these colours. I said, it was like a rainbow that was coming up in sections, and I was getting all these colours. I said, it was beautiful. It was just like going through a fly round space, and all these colours are coming up.
Cool.
But for some reason, I knew that I couldn't find red. I knew I had, to have red in that. And I'm looking at all these colours, checking them out and thinking, where's the red? And she said, really? And I said, yeah. And what colour was predominant for you? And I said, violet, which obviously is the third eye. Violet was the most predominant. I said, what does that mean? She said, at this stage, I've just say to you, it's something that's very important to you. But we need to say, I need to tell you a bit more about what Reiki is. So you felt me doing all this massaging? I said, yeah. She said, I'll never lay the hand on you.
Wow. That is amazing. I love it.
So obviously, she said to me, you need to come back to me. You cannot go off with this. This is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Because I almost feel that you've had a Kundalini. Either your Kundalini is rising or it's about to rise.
Wow.
You need to be attuned. You need to have me as your teacher. And I'm, what? I thought it was, you know, this person just wants to get loads of money out of me, and well, I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit off-putting.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'll think about it. So I worked busy in a horrid job. I was in corporate, I was in legal. There was a lot of things going on that I didn't agree with the way it worked. They're supposed to be lawyers. Hello, you know. And I was this jurisprudence with this moral value thing. Naive as hell. How do you think they get the money to pay you wages? Good money, really good money. But I was in this job I hated. And I went away on a holiday. I came back, and when I came back, my desk was just covered in files of clients where no one had touched anything. So all correspondence coming in on those files weren't attended to. There were checks on files that weren't banked. There were cost checks that hadn't even been banked. And it was just left for me to deal with, all on my desk. And I was horrified. So I went through all the files, looking at the urgent stuff, banked all the checks, either to the client account or the solicitor's account. And then there were court orders. A hearing's coming up in 2 days. And my client hasn't even been phoned to be told.
Oh my goodness.
A hearing coming up in 2 days. So I had to ring this client and say, can you make it? Hoping he couldn't actually. So I could just file an application to the court to say, client can't come. Can we reschedule it? Because it was only a small value case. It wasn't anything super duper. And the court would have understood and said, yeah, okay, we'll redo it on a different date. And he said, yeah, I can turn up. So I thought, oh shit. So I had to literally prepare a case, a full bundle of documents to file at court, instruct a barrister to attend on our behalf. And anyway, I did it. There was just one that was urgent. Everything else, I thought, well, that's not urgent. So I went in my bottom drawer, got all my stuff out, a bag, put all my personal stuff in a bag, got my coat on, just walked out. Literally walked out. And I stood on the city street having a panic attack, having a full-blown anxiety attack, and thought,
wow,
shit, what have I done? And I was looking, and I'll share this on here. It's not something I can share on here, but it's not suicidal ideation. It was a query in me to say, this tram that's coming, because we have trams in the city centre, this tram that's coming, and I'm looking down at the rails and going, I wonder what it would be like. And the next thing, this voice came booming in and said, no, we have work to do. And I just said, oh, okay. Turn around, tears screaming down my face because I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't know it was a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I just went into this sort of shop that had some shelves you could hide behind around the back and finished my crying and grabbed some tissues and cleaned myself up. Came out and then took myself off to the local hospital. It was automatic. It was just step by step by step. Go to the hospital. You need help. You do not know what's going on. You have no clue, Jules, what's going on here.
Wow.
But all will be well. All I could think of was all will be well. But you do need some medical assistance. And that's what I was saying to myself. And then when I got into the hospital, I broke down again and I had a panic attack again. And they managed to get me to see they call them psychiatrists over here, don't they, to call them that in the States. So I had a bit of a wait and said, if you can wait, you can see, you know, are you willing to just have a conversation with a psychiatrist and can explain to you what's happening? I think I know what's happening. Tied in with the perimenopause. I've recently had a hysterectomy, the Reiki, boom.
Yeah.
You know. So the guy, oh my God, I couldn't believe the look, was a Hindu, incredibly spiritual man who said to me, oh yes, he said, ladies go through this. He said, and some ladies have a really powerful Kundalini experience when they're going through the menopause. This is what you've had. But I got to talk to you as a psychiatrist. There's been so much going on for you. You've recently become a grandmother. Your son put that boundary in. Even though you had therapy, it will have been a shock to your system. You've had a hysterectomy. You're going on the perimenopause. You've had a Reiki treatment. He said, well, that's all your chakras being balanced. And they probably weren't balanced. So getting all your chakras balanced, he said, that's a big thing, you know, and it opens up space for the Kundalini to come up. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I love you. And then he broke the spell and he said, you know what your problem is? He said, yeah, okay, your mind's broken or gone to sleep, and said, you can't do this anymore. You've got to take rest. Will you be going back to work? I said, no. I walked out. And he said, oh my God, you did the best thing you could ever have done. And then he said, you know what your problem is? You know what you need? I said, go on. He went, a man. You need a man. And that was it. I just lost everything with him. I didn't get what he was talking about. He meant you need a good man to look after you.
Yeah.
But I've been single, bringing up my son for so long. I was of this, I don't need a man.
Yeah.
I'm managing fine with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of a default. I know this one.
Yeah.
And that's
how lucky
fine.
How lucky was I to get this guy?
Yeah. Wow. So what happened next? You're such a great storyteller. I'm just like, what now? What happened next?
What next? So I was still very shaken. You know, I'm still having the effects of anxiety.
Yeah. Kundalini is intense. I mean, you think you're going nuts.
Yeah. So even though I knew really deep down, but it was then because I wasn't having this voice and not being in that alternative state at the time, but I was only having the remnants of it. That was there to comfort me like a little ember inside. But the rest of my body was like, oh, what do I do? Oh my God, I've left my job, I'm sick, my brain's broke, I'm on the perimenopause, I'm losing it, I'm on the change of life, I'm going crazy. And I was going to a friend for tea that evening, and I phoned to say that I wasn't so good and that I'd probably see her the next day. And she said, no, I'll wait up for you. Come. And she lived near me. So I went to her house. And I told her what had happened. And she said, fine. She said, we've got a spare room here. You'll stay here till you're better. And I said, pardon? She said, you need looking after, because you can't look after yourself while you're out there. You can stay in our spare room until you're better. So that's what I did. I literally stayed in her spare bedroom. I didn't go out for 2 weeks. I didn't go out of the house for 2 weeks. And I didn't even come down the stairs much.
Wow.
I'd literally stayed in the bedroom for 2 weeks.
Yeah. That is exactly what you needed to do.
It was. And I had been to my own GP. The psychiatrist guy prescribed me a whatever it was. But when I showed my own doctor what he prescribed me, she was horrified. I said, oh, put that in the bin. She said, in fact, have you got them in your bag? I said, yeah. Give them to me, said I'll destroy them. Said I will give you a very mild antidepressant. You've got reactive depression. Because I've had 2 bereavements as well. A breakup of a relationship.
Yeah.
And I'd done a voluntary job that was very intense. It was crisis counselling on a phone line. That had ended abruptly because of what was going on in the organisation. So I
Mm-hmm.
was missing that. I broke up with a guy that I really liked. You know, I got this awful job that I hated because the job I loved had been made redundant from.
Mm-hmm.
So I did bereavement. My son's telling me that I've got this boundary. I'd had a hysterectomy and I'd started the perimenopause.
Yeah.
So I had all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
And she said, you've got reactive depression. So I do recommend that you take this mild antidepressant. But I want you to come back in 2 weeks and I'm going to monitor you every 2 weeks to check you.
Mm-hmm.
She was absolutely fantastic, this doctor. She gave me beta blockers because she said that there could still be a heart thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But after 2 weeks, I will
Yeah.
take you off the beta blockers. So if anybody asks me about medication, I'm kind of not on the fence, but I say, look, if you've got a fantastic medic who knows what they're doing, who is going to monitor you
Yeah.
on this temporary thing,
Yeah.
don't reject medicine.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I've been on antidepressants a couple of times in my life, and they were fantastic. You know, to just sort of stop the shit from escalating into even bigger shit, you know, and it's great temporary stuff.
It was a validation of you need to close down.
Yeah.
You need to shut up shop.
Wow.
You need to step back from the world. You need sanctuary. You need sanctuary. You need retreat. And in the absence of pots of money and a retreat over in Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
then my neighbour's spare bedroom was my retreat. So the second night I was there, the first night I was just zonked. I was exhausted. But the second night, because I'd not really done much in the daytime, I'd not been this anxious, busy person. I was still awake at 1 o'clock in the morning and I was kind of just lying in the bed, just dozing, actually just chilling out, just feeling relaxed, and everything's now fine. I've got a whole new future ahead of me, which I'm really excited about because I know everything is going to be fine. And the next thing is I'm drifting. I could feel my eyes going. The next thing, I have this big white light coming in front of my eyes. And this face appears in front of me. It was a guy I dated when I was 19 who killed himself shortly after we broke up. And when I was 19, I started to go into real guilt about it. But my mum said he was known in the neighbourhood, kind of. And because he was kind of older than me, I didn't see him as a prospect for going forward. And my mum said, you probably don't know him as much as I might know him through, you know, going in local pubs, whatever. She said, and he's just been ditched by his fiance. And then dates you a couple of times. So don't you take this on board. That guy was heartbreak. He just happened to date you a couple of times. The fact that he did that and you were just a stopgap, his heart was broken by his fiance, not you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were just someone to date. Because I was feeling, oh God, it's my fault that this guy killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
But then I listened to what my mum said. She said, don't carry any guilt that you're not meant to carry. And I didn't. And I did let it go. So at 43, I've not thought of the guy for over 30 years. Is it? 19 to 43 is 20, 25 years, nearly. And his face appeared in this white light. And I'm like, but his face had the, you know, when you think of Jesus and it's got this really benign look.
Yeah, the sort of halo.
Yeah, his face had this benign look and his eyes were beaming compassion into me.
Aw.
And I'm like, hello, hello, ooh, hello. And he said, you don't need to take on board any guilt that is not yours. Your time isn't now. And I need to tell you that I am absolutely 300 million% happy and I'm fine. And I just said, thank you. Because suddenly, when talking to him, I felt this, whoa, very guilt. I hadn't felt this.
Wow. Cool. That is so
And he
cool.
literally pulled it out of me, and he literally shamanically cleared it. I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, this is trippy. But then I said, so what happens when you go over? And he said, well, behind me, can you see figures? And I could see these black figures, shadowy figures in a mist.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, they're all the loved ones that you've ever had over lifetime. And every single one of them will speak to you just as I have. And they will all be there waiting with open arms to greet you, but not yet.
Wow.
But I just wanted to come. I wanted to do this. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
almost like call me in.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then he went, and I can't explain what I felt. It was the purest compassion, but I truly believe it was the grace of God,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I cannot verbalize what that feels like. It is a embodied experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody feels in their way.
Yeah.
So how that felt for me might not feel the same as how that might feel for someone else.
Mm-hmm. But wow. 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 What a
So I knew
mystical, amazing experience.
I had to do something with this. I knew that I could either, I thought, if I completely ignore what's happened to me, I'm being really ungrateful.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
knew that not to do something with this amazing experience, which I had 300 million% trust in, was real.
Yeah.
Not real as in obviously earthbound, but not something to be ashamed of, not something to be frightened of believing in.
Yeah.
It didn't make me mad. It didn't make me psychotic.
Yeah.
It meant that I'd been given a grace that not many people manage to receive. And I thought, God, if I reject that, I shouldn't reject that.
Mm-hmm.
I need to accept that, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
didn't go like all religious or anything, because I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But I connected to libraries. I already knew about Maya Angelou and her story about libraries when she was going through her, because I was an avid reader, and I did read sort of people who were inspirational books, not self-help at that time.
Yeah.
But I'd read a bit about Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
I loved her. You know,
Yeah. Me as
she
well.
was one of my inspirations. But when she talks about the library, and I thought, right, okay. So because I had to go back to the doctor every 2 weeks, the library was just up the road, and that was the only places I went to for about 3 months, was the doctor, checking my meds, and the library.
Yeah.
And each time I'm pulling out loads of books and reading them in the 2 weeks, and then taking them back and pulling out a load of more.
Cool.
And I initially thought what had happened to me was spiritualist, not spiritual. So because I'd been to a spiritual church, just as a, a bit of fun with my sister, and they do a service, and then they connect to spirit, and then they do hymns and all that. And we'd been there, and I thought that's what was happening to me, that I was becoming a medium.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the library looking for spiritualist department, if that made sense.
Yeah.
And I just saw the word spiritual book. I thought the two things were the same. That's how naive I was. I didn't even realize that spiritual.
It's so innocent.
Different.
It's not naive. It's innocent.
Yeah. So I go in there and I find all these books by Krishnamurti,
All right.
usual suspects, Wayne Dyer, philosophy as well. There's a load of philosophy stuff.
Yeah.
And I just consumed it like someone who's not eaten.
Yeah.
Like
You were just
starving.
primed and ready for it.
Well, and I just absorbed all this stuff. And then obviously the Reiki. I started to read about the Reiki. Then I got back in touch. A cousin of mine contacted me, and this is a couple of years later. A cousin of mine contacted me, and she'd moved away and we'd lost touch. And she said it'd be great to have a phone conversation. So, yeah, okay. So we had a phone conversation. And she said, oh, so what have you been up to? So I said, oh, well, it's been a bit different, my life, you know. I'll tell you what's gone on. She burst out laughing when I was telling her. And I'm like, that's a bit rude. So I just said, all right, then, what are you laughing at? She said, you know what, because her husband had died before. She said, you know, when my husband died, she said, you know what got me through? I said, go on, don't make it. She said, I did get a team. She said, I'm a Reiki Master Teacher now. And I went, I can't believe it. My cousin, who, you know, so close to, had already become a Reiki Master Teacher. While I'm having the treatment and having the epiphany, she's already had her spiritual awakening as a result of losing her husband. So we were cousins, like, and we were like sisters when we were younger.
Wow.
So, boom, of course, spirit brought this connection back with my cousin. Well, then obviously I was trailing behind her, if that makes sense, in
Yeah, of
experience.
course.
But she has got me attuned. You know, I was going on all these kinds of chakra dance stuff. I was going on to all these spiritual workshops and events and getting into yoga and, you know, just opening my awareness. And
Beautiful.
so it just all came together. After that, spirit kept flashing that word Reiki at me. And I listened. That's the thing. I listened and I acted on it.
So beautiful. What an amazing story. I mean, you know, this is just how spirit works. This is how the divine works.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say that I have not adhered to that path as conscientiously as I might.
Mm-hmm.
When I sort of felt better, I felt like a different person. But I did get pulled back into going to work. I bought a little business. I met my partner. I became more hedonist than spiritual. Again, I sort of fell back into that, what I call sort of, not hedonism, but into the human plane.
Yeah.
But it took, and I did pick it up again through a different path,
Yeah.
through coming
Yeah.
in contact with shamans and a more occult, a more esoteric, metaphysical. You know,
Mhm.
we've talked about
Yeah.
the Kabbalion, and you know, we've talked about the Hermetic work, and I just love it now. I've got my passion back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I've got
I think it's really, really cool because we need the sort of backdrop of experience back in the matrix in order to hone in our skill set to be able to waltz in and out and impart the bits and pieces, you know, those golden platinum nuggets to our clients or students, the people that we love, the people who look up to us, that sort of thing. Whether we mentor formally or informally or just by being an example, I think that's important, you know, because the world is going to exist, you know, and where our consciousness is moving in and out of that matrix world. And then, you know, the level of consciousness and the up leveling of our thoughts really just kind of, it all just gets pieced together divinely. I mean, it's like amazing to me.
I think you've got a huge valid point there. I haven't seen it that way. When I look back, as you're speaking, I'm swiftly going back over that. I'm re-scanning it. I didn't have a partner. I've never really had a real loving relationship with a guy. You know, a significant
me neither.
other. You know, I've not had the resolving of my relationship with my mom, which ended up being no contact rather than coming together. But it was still a resolution.
No,
I never
I
had
have
to
zero contact, and that is a resolution that she you know, she did it. You know, I didn't do it, she did it.
Exactly. So whether it be the happy ending that most people would think that one would get, Not necessarily.
Mhm.
It becomes an ending.
Yeah.
And I became resilient, and I learned my boundaries, and I learned to
Beautiful.
stand my own
Yeah.
ground,
Yeah.
and I learned to balance my own chakras. And I coach clients with that basis. The chakra system is
Yeah.
my framework for
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah.
You know, the Ayurvedic, the development of the human body
Yeah.
around the chakras, rather than the chakras developing in the body. I think the
Yes.
body develops around the chakras.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
I agree. They animate the body.
absolutely. So if your chakras are imbalanced, the rest of your body's out of balance.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, physically, and people think it's just health, physical health. It's not.
It's
It's
not.
emotional. It's
Yeah.
metaphysical.
Yeah.
It's esoteric. It's
It really
all your body. It's your auric body. It can even be your astral body. Your chakras are out of whack. You're receiving information from the universe that's affecting you out of whack. And if you're out of whack, you're processing out of whack, and you're transmitting out of whack, which is okay in the grand scheme of things, because not everybody's going to be, you know, harmonized perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
We can't
I
be.
mean, we're
However,
not these static beings that, you know, we're morphing from one moment to the next.
exactly. But if people can get just a little bit of information about it, it's just an extra piece of information that people can,
Mhm.
that's actionable,
Yeah.
to actually reduce the amount of imbalance within all of their
Yeah. Yeah.
places of existence.
Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm looking at the time here. Holy moly. We're like, we're going an hour and 10 already. I had no idea how fast things were. I mean, I was mesmerized. I'm mesmerized. I'm like going, wow, that is such a cool journey that you just described, where, you know, and it's so, I love it because it's so innocent in the way that you just, I mean, it's like, and this is what we do. It's one foot in front of the other, and we meet people, and there are helpers, and there are shit disturbers, and there are bullies, and there are people that we love. There are people that come back to us in different forms, and you know, it's fantastic, you know, and just the process of like paying attention to the movement of spirit inviting you to come along, you know. Did you
Yeah.
ever go and train with that Reiki person, the initial one?
No, I didn't.
I
got
don't
trained by
blame
my
you,
cousin.
because the way she came at you, it's just like, what do you mean I have to study with you? No, back off. It's just like, whoa. And meeting up with your cousin, was she your cousin? Yeah, I mean, that is just fantastic. That is where you needed to go. It's
Absolutely.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. When she started laughing on the phone, I was a bit affronted. I'm like, you know, you're not being really kind here. I'm going through all this trauma, and I'm telling you my story, and you're just laughing. And she said, no, I'm laughing because I'm a Reiki Master Teacher. And I went, you're joking. That was just like not in my realm anymore. Reiki wasn't even in my realm. I was like, no, no way, you know. But then when she said that, I just went, oh, like that, as if
Of course.
looking up to spirit.
It's that divine timing. You know, the divine timing
Exactly,
was right
exactly.
there.
And it's almost like spirit laughing as well, saying, well, we
Yeah.
knew we'd get you eventually, you know. So we brought someone else along who is more acceptable to you
Yeah.
to teach you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. How wonderful. How wonderful.
Yeah, it's great because now I'm a Reiki Master Teacher.
Yeah.
And when you work in the, you know this, you work in energy, you're an energy worker. You know that when you hit master level, that's when you get the
Yeah.
miracles.
Yeah.
So when you've experienced the miracles at that level, that's when you can connect to your own past lives. You can connect to your own Akashic record.
Mhm.
So I've done all that work as well. There's tons more, you know, that I've done. And now I just feel so blessed
That's so cool. That's so cool. Tell us a little bit about your work. We'll go for
Um,
another 15.
yeah. So, for instance, I connected to a past life, and I won't tell you all of it at this stage because it could be a long story. I'm going to write it anyway, so I might post it up on YouTube. I don't know. Um, but basically, this guy, Yarrow, came into my life. So I journeyed with Yarrow, and it took me to ancient Greece.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it was actually Asclepius because I said, "Are you?" And I can't say his name. Are you Asclepius? And he was like, "No, but kind of know him, you know." And there was this guy on this flint, a stone flint, and there was a crowd around. And he'd been injured in the war. He'd got sword flashed on his arm. His muscle was ripped open. And this guy was treating him with leaves, and it was yarrow. And obviously, the Achillesorium, something or other, named after Achilles. So I don't know when it was. I didn't get any information around when it was, where it was, but they were all wearing the ancient garb. And I'm stood at the back of this crowd, slightly up. It's almost like I was floating above it, but watching it. And the guy communicating with me from over there, guiding me as to what he's doing. So he's putting this poultice on this wound. And I said to him, will he live? And he said, if he thinks he'll live, he'll live. And I said, what's the kind of healing rate? And he said 70%. No question. It just came right out, 70%. If they've got the will. It's only 70% successful, even if they believe they will live. 30% of people will die. And I said, why? And he said, because when I go away, they don't keep it clean, the wound, and they don't redress it as often as they should. And I went, all right, okay. And came away. And it's like, oh, well, what happened there? So I discovered that I can journey where I want to go. And I can. So the other night, a couple of months ago, I had an irritation on my back. You know, you get some dry skin for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to go to sleep, and it was prickling. This patch of skin was really prickling at me. And I put some sort of lotion on it prior to going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I thought I couldn't be bothered getting out of bed. So I just went into the miracle zone and said, I'm calling yarrow and plantain. Are you the two, whatever? Yeah, happy dancing together. And they mixed themselves up into a salve in my awareness. And then it was applied onto this prickly skin.
Mm-hmm.
Instantaneously.
Wow.
So,
cool.
Instantaneously. So because I know I can do that, I don't offer that as a process for other people. I am not a medical medium.
Yeah.
Because I kind of had the choice to go down that route. And I said, no, that isn't where I want to go. There are so many medical mediums out there doing a fantastic job. I would only have been half-hearted. So I talk about that and do it just to say to people, I can train you to go down the path where if you apply it, you might get to that point where you can do that. Mm-hmm. But I will, wherever I can take you, I can expand your awareness anyway. Yeah. So you might not want to travel with plants and heal yourself. Yeah. You might want to travel with something else. That's what I can see is that travel.
Wow.
And let's have it right. It's not difficult, is it? It's just
how cool.
Really, just self-hypnosis, isn't it, really? You think it's, but then when you go on YouTube, you've got so many people actually doing it on there.
But I mean, are they actually doing it? Or some of it to me is just kind of bullshit fluff to me, where it's like, yeah, and they got millions of views. Like, how do they do it? I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's not as deep as I go. So a lot of it isn't as deep as I go. It's very superficial. But I think that's an hook for people to contact them and say, I want to go deeper. And that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. Well, tell us how we can find you. How can people find you and work with you?
So people can find me. The best way to contact me is literally on Facebook. Okay. And just type in my name, which is Jools Williams, because I'm not sure there are other people that are called that. Mm-hmm. But if there are, then my business page is called the Jewelled Chalice.
Okay.
Conscious Coaching.
Okay.
It's the Jewelled Chalice Conscious Coaching.
Okay, cool.
And that is my Facebook business page. So you will see, you'll be able to contact me through that page.
Okay. All right. So you do that, kids, and we'll have all of Jules'
Yeah,
information down in the show notes. Yeah, because I'm just fascinated. I'm fascinated by the workings of spirit, of the divine, of just the connections and the sparking. And we have such a good tribe on the Facebook, and that has been like it was not like that for me until say the last five years, you know um so I really appreciate all the connections and our connection, and just there's a certain camaraderie because we're sharing, and we're also honoring the journeys and the transformations that we have had individually and as a collective, and also as colleagues,
I agree. I agree. And I literally put out a prayer to connect to more people like yourself who can have these deep conversations and be able to hold someone in their story like you can. And I know I can do it too. It's holding someone in their story. That, yeah, okay, I might look back now and I can talk about it, and I don't get that stage of being triggered. I don't re-traumatize myself anymore.
Yeah, of course
But I know
not.
that
I mean, I
I
think
know that
that
if
is
I
a
did,
sign. That's a sign of consciousness, is when you are not sitting there getting yourself upset or having this, fugue where your consciousness is receding.
absolutely. No, I do know that. I just know, and I've got no proof, but I just know that if I did have a wobble, if I did get a bit upset and go, oh, I know that you could hold me in that. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And I know you would do that for me.
Absolutely. And it's that ability to bring that higher consciousness awareness, but also be real and get your feet on the floor and say, this person's hurting. I'm there with you.
Yeah.
It's that being able to shift with what you see in front of you, what God places in front of you, you can see.
That is that true compassion, that true empathy, because there's a lot of people that claim they are empathetic, and what will they do? They will cut you off the moment you are having any kind of intense feeling. They'll just cut you off, or guilt and shame you about it, that you haven't worked on it enough, and how dare you have feelings. It's like, whoa. No, that is not how it works. Empathy doesn't work that way. Empathy is about suffering with someone and not losing consciousness.
Absolutely. And being having that strong iron thing that runs through you, the core that runs through you. Anyway, I'm very aware of time.
Yeah.
So I will stop.
It has been so delightful, Jules. You have no idea. I just so immensely enjoyed our time together. You are great company, girlfriend. And so this will come out in a couple of weeks. And it's gonna be really, really good. And I will send you I'll send you all the information. Send me your information just so that I have it, and
absolutely will. And I'll share this on my YouTube channel, which is the Jewelled Chalice.
Yes, it's a great YouTube channel, lots of great interviews, really, really cool. And so kids, you know where we are. I'll have all of Jules' information in the show notes below. And thank you, Jules, so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your guidance.
Thank you, Maya.
Really, really appreciate it. And so anyways, kids, that is it for now. And of course, as usual, be kind to yourselves, my loves. Okay. Really be kind to yourselves And here is to Love, Truth, and Beauty. Until next time, mwah! Ciao, Bellas. Ciao, ciao, ciao.